Alice in Wonderland. In this classic story, Alice follows the White Rabbit down a rabbit hole. She encounters many strange characters and adventures, including drink that make her grow and food that makes her shrink. This part of the story begins when Alice once again catches up with the White Rabbit, who seems to be in a very big hurry. Very soon the rabbit noticed Alice. He called to her in an angry tone. "Why, Mary Ann, what are you doing here? Run home this moment and fetch me a pair of gloves and a fan. Quick, now." Alice was so frightened that she ran off at once in the direction he pointed without trying to explain the mistake he had made. "He took me for his maid," she said to herself as she ran. "But I'd better take him and his fan and gloves than is if I can find them." As she said this, she came upon a neat little house. On the door was the name W. Rabbit. She went in without knocking and hurried upstairs. She was very afraid that she might meet with the real Mary Ann and be kicked out of the house. "How strange it seems," Alice said to herself, "to be running errands for a rabbit. I suppose my cat Dina will be sending me on errands next." By this time she had found her way into a tidy little room with a table by the window. On it was a fan and 2 or 3 pairs of tiny white gloves. She took the fan and gloves and was just going to leave when her eye fell upon a little bottle near the mirror. There was no label this time with the words, "Drink me." Nevertheless, she uncorked it and put it to her lips. "I know something interesting is sure to happen," she said to herself. "Sometimes something interesting always happens when I eat or drink anything. So I will just see what this bottle does. I hope it will make me grow larger again. I'm tired of being such a tiny little thing." I did indeed, and much sooner than she expected. Before she had drunk half the bottle. She found her head against the ceiling. She had to stoop to save her neck from being broken. She hastily put down the bottle, saying to herself, "That's quiet enough, quick enough. I hope I won't grow any more. As it is, I can't get out the door. I do wish I hadn't drunk so much." Alas, was too late to wish that. She went on growing and growing, and very soon had to knee down to the floor on the floor. In another minute there was not even room for this, and she lay with one elbow against the door and the other curled round her head. Still she went on growing. As a last resort, she put one arm out the window and one foot up the chimney. She said to herself, I can do no more. Whatever happens, what will become of me? Luckily for Alice, the little bottle had its full effect, and she grew no larger. Still, it was very uncomfortable, and there seemed to be no chance of ever getting out of the room again. No wonder she felt unhappy. It was much pleasanter at home. Poor Alice said to herself, I wasn't always growing larger and smaller, and being ordered around by mice and rabbits. I almost wish I hadn't gone down that rabbit hole, and yet it's rather strange. This sort of life. I wonder that what will happen to me. When I used to read my fairy tales, said, I imagined that this kind of thing never happened. Now here I am in the middle of a fairy tale. There ought to be a book written about me, and I grow up. I will write one, but I suppose I'm grown up now. She continued in a sorrowful tone. Won't I ever grow up from where I am now? That will be good. In one way, I will never have to be an old woman, but then I will also always have lessons to do. Oh, you foolish Alice, she answered herself. How can you do lessons in here? Why, there's hardly any room in here for you, and none at all for schoolbooks. She went on taking first one side and then the other, until after a few minutes she heard a voice outside and stopped to listen. Marianne, Marianne, and said the voice, fetch me my gloves this moment. Then came a little pattering of feet on the stairs. Alice knew it was the rabbit coming to look for her. The rabbit came up to the door and tried to open it, but as the door opened inwards and Alice's elbow was pressed against it, that attempt failed. Alice heard him say to himself, Then I will get in the window. That you won't, thought Alice. After waiting until she stopped, she heard the rabbit just under the window. She suddenly spread out her hand and made a snatch in the air. She did not get hold of anything, but she heard a little shriek and a crash of broken glass. Next came an angry voice. The rabbit's Pat, where are you? And then a voice she had never heard before, digging for apples, so your honor. Digging for apples indeed, said the rabbit angrily. Come and help me out of this. Now tell me, Pat, what's in the window? Sure, it's an arm, your honor. An arm, you goose. Whoever saw one that size? Why, it fills the whole window. Sure it does, your honor, but it's an arm for all that. Well, it's got no business there, and at any rate, go and take it away. There was a long silence after Silence after this, and Alice could only hear whispers and whispers now and then. At last, she spread out her hand again and made another snatch in the air. This time there were two little shrieks and more sounds of broken glass.